Welcome to The Explainer, where we break down big, complicated stories into something you can actually wrap your head around.
Okay, let's kick things off with a number. 6 million. That is a huge number, and it's allegedly how many records one of the biggest tech giants on the planet lost. Just like that. This number, it's really the heart of the whole story we're getting into today.
So what happens when a company's past literally comes back to haunt it? That's what we're talking about today with the March 2025 Oracle Cloud breach. And really, this isn't just your standard hacker story. It's more like a digital ghost story. A perfect example of how old tech can create some brand new, very scary problems. All right, first things first, the 6 million record breach. Let's really unpack how this all went down.
So let's just lay out the facts, straight from the incident reports. We're talking March 2025. The target, Oracle's older legacy cloud environments. And the haul, roughly 6 million records. And look, this wasn't just random data. We're talking the really sensitive stuff. Key files, credentials, and password hashes. Now, those hashes are basically scrambled passwords, but believe me, in the wrong hands, even scrambled, they are incredibly dangerous.
Which, brings up a pretty big question, right? How does a modern tech giant like Oracle even end up this vulnerable? Let's take a look at the cracks in that cloud armor and see exactly how the attackers got inside. Okay, the key to this whole thing is a concept called a legacy system. And here's the best way to think about it. Imagine a company's modern tech is this gleaming, brand new skyscraper. A legacy system, that's like one abandoned, unrenovated floor in the middle of it. The locks are old and rusty, no one's really watching it, but it's still connected to everything else. And that's the danger. A weakness on that one dusty floor can put the entire skyscraper at risk. And that is pretty much exactly what happened.
So the attackers didn't just find one little crack. They found a perfect storm of 3 major vulnerabilities. First, you've got these old systems just sitting there with no modern defenses. Second, the authentication, the digital locks on the doors, was super weak, easy to get around. And finally, number 3, nobody was really watching the place. There was a real lack of monitoring and security patching. Put those 3 things together, and you've got a recipe for a massive breach.
And a breach like this is never just one and done. It creates this dangerous ripple effect, a cascade of consequences that hits not just the company, but all of its customers too.
And this is where things get really interesting, because you see this disconnect in their response. Publicly, the message was, "Don't worry, our core services are fine." But behind the scenes, they were telling some of their customers, "Yeah, our older systems were accessed." It's this classic tale of 2 messages, and it really shows you the kind of pressure these companies are under to control the story.
So this impact wasn't just a single explosion. It was a chain reaction. Step 1, the attackers grabbed the login details. Step 2, they used those stolen keys to open up even more doors and get deeper into the system. And then step 3, the part that really lingers, all that stolen data is now out there, which massively increases the risk of future attacks on Oracle's customers.
Okay, so after all that, what's the takeaway? What's the most important part? Well, it's about learning from this failure. It's about turning these weaknesses into strengths. Let's really dig into the lessons here. Lesson number 1 is pretty blunt. Modernize or pay the price. The weakness was simple: outdated systems. The defense? You have to continuously modernize and maintain your stuff. You just can't afford to let the old parts of your digital house crumble. All right, lesson 2. You gotta build stronger digital walls. The weakness here was just bad authentication. The defense is a 1-2 punch. First, something called cloud segmentation. Just think of it like fire doors in a building. If one area has a problem, you can seal it off so it doesn't spread. And second, something you've probably heard of, multi-factor authentication, or MFA. Where you need a code from your phone to log in. That simple step is absolutely critical now. It's not optional anymore. And the last lesson, number 3, you have to be watching, constantly. The weakness was that nobody was really keeping an eye on things. The defense is continuous monitoring and patching. Why is this so important? Because it cuts down on what the pros call dwell time, and that's the terrifying amount of time an attacker can be poking around inside your network before you even know they're there. The faster you spot them, the less damage they can cause. Simple as that.
So, at the end of the day, this digital ghost story from a massive tech company leaves all of us with a really important question to think about. We trust so much of our lives, our information, to the cloud. But is our most important data actually being protected by yesterday's security? That's the question this whole incident forces every single one of us to ask. Thanks for tuning in.